Good afternoon, everyone. Can someone tell me whether my voice is clear and is this screen clearly visible to all of you? आवाज आ रही है सबको? Okay. So welcome all of you for today's special session, you can say. Okay, just like how we did COP28, and similarly we are trying to also cover one of the most important component in your syllabus also, WTO, and especially the 13th Ministerial Conference. Okay, the question, everything that is in this session, okay, it's important for your descriptive papers. That is but obvious. Okay, usually every time the question comes related to that only, or they can directly ask you what has been the developments within the 13th Ministerial Conference, or they'll just go and pick a specific issue within the Ministerial Conference development and they'll ask you a question. And objective ke liye to anyways important hai. Okay, they can ask you questions related to whatever developments are there, either in phase 1 GA but also in phase 2 ESI finance as well. Mostly ESI. Okay, so I cannot exaggerate more about the importance of this topic. So feel free to ask me doubts if you feel about anything, but let's just discuss what are the major developments that happened in this ministerial conference that happened in Abu Dhabi. Okay? UAE. And this happened between 26th February till 1st March 2024. But unlike 12th Ministerial Conference, which come up with huge number of agreements upon various diverse topics, 13th Ministerial Conference was not that much successful in terms of agreement by various countries or WTO as a whole. But at least they've talked and discussed about a lot of things. We'll see what India's position about those things were and what developed countries' position about those things were. Okay, so we'll discuss about various issues and let's see the context, what happened at the 13th Ministerial Conference and what's in the store for future also. So the first thing, and it's the most, you can say, the legacy issue within the WTO amongst the developing as well as developed countries, is the issue of subsidies. So the deadlock, European Union as well as United States block India's proposal on fish as well as farm subsidies. So if we talk about the context of farm subsidies, so as all of you know, that India's public stock holding program, the developed country says this actually distort price. Because India collects or procures a lot amount of food grains from farmers at MSP. Okay? And anything that changes the price except the forces of demand and supply is trade distorting. So this whole program is trade distorting and this should be ended. But whereas, the Indian government says that we are only doing this phenomena because we have a lot of population, almost close to, let's say, 14%. But if you go to recent household consumption expenditure survey data, so it is around 5%. But that much amount of population is still below poverty line, and to take care of the food security of those population, we have to continue with this program. So this is what the position of Indian government is. And apart from this position, Indian government is also saying that we need permanent solution for this public stock holding program. And what's the permanent solution? That India ko ye continue karte rehna chahiye. Do not ask us to stop this, because this is not what we are doing to distort trade, but this is we are doing to ensure food security of the people that are living below poverty line. So that was the proposal given by India, that we need a permanent solution, but this has been blocked by EU and US. So thereby nothing is concrete or nothing moved forward in context of this. So what was the situation back then? the same has been still continuing, which is Bali Peace Clause of 2013, which says that these subsidies can continue until WTO members agree upon any agreement. ठीक है, पहले पीस क्लॉज केवल 10 साल के लिए था, but it now is up to infinite time until unless the whole WTO membership agrees upon it. ठीक है, so this is in context of farm subsidies. But what about fishing subsidies? So fishing subsidies, the issue of fishing subsidies came in the previous Ministerial Conference, where every WTO member was agreeing upon various type of illegal, unregulated and over exploitation of fishing in zones that are already a lot more exploited. Fishing in those particular regions are also prohibited under the fisheries agreement. But within that thing, there was also one critical provision which said that if any government is providing subsidies to fishermen with respect to all these categories of fishery or fishing, which is unregulated, illegal and fishing in exploited regions, so those subsidies needed to be eliminated. So that was the provision back then in the 12th Ministerial Conference. But obviously there was special and differentiated treatment under the special and differentiated treatment principle of WTO. Developing countries were provided a peace clause कि आप लोग दे सकते हो, because in developing countries without subsidies small fishermen will not be able to survive, ठीक है, or will not be able to compete with other players or other large players. So that's why subsidies are essential in terms of food security in the coastal regions also. So that's why the fishery subsidies were provided. So apart from obviously that thing, India came up with another proposal in context of fisheries agreement. What's the proposal India gave? India said that India requests unhindered fishing rights in exclusive economic zones. Okay, what is exclusive economic zone? So every country has this region. What's the distance from the coast? Anyone? Yes, 200 nautical miles. So 200 nautical miles area from the coast is what you call exclusive economic zone. Now the India was saying कि in exclusive economic zone do not ask us about anything. ठीक है, चाहे हम अनरेगुलेटेड करें, चाहे हम इलीगल करें, चाहे हम ओवर एक्सप्लॉइटेड रीजन के अंदर करें, इधर मत बोलो. Open areas में if you want to have any agreement you can do so. So that was the proposal given by India in this ministerial conference. ठीक है, so this was the first proposal, and another proposal that India gave was a 25-year subsidy moratorium on advanced fishing nations for past overfishing. इंडिया कह रही है कि एक काम करो, आप लगा तो रहे हो सब्सिडी का एलिमिनेशन, एक ना ओवरऑल सब्सिडी एलिमिनेशन स्पेशली टू एडवांस्ड कंट्रीज आप लगा दो, क्योंकि उन्होंने पहले बहुत सब्सिडीज दे रखे हैं ये लोग, हम लोग तो अभी सब्सिडीज देना स्टार्ट किए हैं. ओके, तो हिस्टोरिकल कॉम्पनसेशन को आप कैसे बैलेंस करेंगे? सो पुट अ 25-year सब्सिडी बैन ऑन दीज कंट्रीज. That's what India proposed. And naturally, obviously this was not supported. European Union and US blocked this thing. But at least you guys are aware that what was the proposal that India gave, especially in the fisheries segment, apart from the peace clause that India already had. ठीक है, तो अब फिशरीज अग्रीमेंट में आप केवल अनरेगुलेटेड और इलीगल फिशिंग की बात नहीं करेंगे, पीस क्लॉज की भी बात करेंगे और इंडिया के इन दो प्रपोजल्स की भी बात करेंगे whenever you will write anything about these things in descriptive answers. Is this clear to everyone? Chalo. So again in this thing, the figures have also been provided by India, which says that there has been huge disparity with respect to subsidies provided by these developed nations to their fishermen or to their fishermen families if you compare it with the developing countries like India. And if you see the discrepancy, you'll see a developed nation average subsidy is $75,000 per year per fisherman family, where if you compare it to India, it barely reaches to $15 per year per fisherman family. So you can imagine the huge percentile or huge percentage difference between the subsidies given by both set of countries. Okay, so that's why the proposals were given by India, especially with respect to 25-year ban on subsidies. So this is what the fisheries agreement is having. Next thing, which was discussed in the 13th Ministerial Conference, but nothing special happened within it, but this is a little bit awareness we need with respect to this agreement, which is also continuing in WTO. So work program on small economies is also an agreement being discussed amongst the countries in WTO framework, okay, where the countries are discussing upon various rules and regulations so that small scale industries can get integrated into multilateral trading system. Okay, so the discussion was initiated way back in Doha Declaration, which asked General Assembly to make recommendation as to what trade related measures can be incorporated for small scale industries so that they can get incorporated in the overall multilateral trading system. Because आपको भी पता है कि overall अगर global trade की बात करें, so there are usually big players that are working over there. Okay, but what are the provisions that we can provide so that even small players can also interact in the global trading system? So basically, if you want an analogy with respect to what this is talking about, तो compare कर लो what government usually does for MSMEs so as to increase their participation in the economy. So if I ask you any example, what are the various steps taken by the government, especially to make sure that government procures from them, from these MSMEs? Do you know any initiative? Yes, correct. Government e-marketplace and even procurement policy of the government. Yes, correct. Now let's move on to so this is what small economies agreement was. Okay, there's nothing concrete happened over there. अगर आप उनका document पढ़ेंगे, if you see the document over there that is present on the WTO's website, it is just saying that we have noted what the progress has been in the discussions on this work program on small economies, and we also direct the committee that is working upon it to expedite the process so that an agreement can be reached by the all countries, especially in context of small economies. तो बस उसमें इतना ही है. आप एटलीस्ट याद करके रखिए कि what is the aim, और एटलीस्ट ये एक एक्स्ट्रा पॉइंट है if you want to write anything in context of 13th Ministerial Conference. Okay, next is WTO smooth transition support measures in favor of countries graduated from least developed countries category. As all of you know, it's not like countries always stay in a particular category of, let's say, GDP. Via GDP, you can categorize countries into least developed countries, middle income countries, developed countries. India was also at some point of time a least developed country, then it transitioned into various, and it will transition into a developed country soon. So that's what I'm trying to say, explain it to you, that no country's development remain isolated or stagnant it either goes down or it either continues to grow. So a lot of countries who were previously least developed countries, obviously they will be transitioning on the basis of it, their economic growth to above levels. So in that case scenario, okay, where their categorization will change, then what will happen to the benefits that they used to receive on account of being LDC in WTO? अगर ये ऊपर चेंज हो जाएंगे तो जैसे ही चेंज होंगे तो आपको क्या बेनिफिट्स मिलना बंद हो जाएगा? So the agreement has been reached in context of ensuring this smooth transition, especially in context of receiving benefits because of having a tag of LDC. So what is the agreement? The agreement says that even if you transition from LDC to anything above than that, the benefits that you had been provided because you had this tag will continue to be provided for 3 more years from the date of changing of your categorization to above developed countries. Is this clear? Any doubt? Basically, think of it like कि आप 5th क्लास में थे, ठीक है? फिर जब तक आप 5th क्लास में थे आपको बहुत प्यार मिल रहा था. जैसे आप 6th में गए, ठीक है, आपको यूजुअली 6th के लड़कों को प्यार मिलना बंद हो जाता है, ठीक है? घर वाले कहते हैं पढ़ो, बट सरकार कह रही है कि ऐसा नहीं होगा. आप 8th क्लास तक भी चले जाओगे ना तब भी प्यार देंगे, कोई दिक्कत वाली बात नहीं. तो थिंक ऑफ इट लाइक दैट. Okay, so you can see a 3-year extension. Even after their graduation, the benefits they'll still be provided. Okay. Now let's move on to next thing, which is work program on electronic commerce. So how many of you are already aware with respect to work program on e-commerce? The e-commerce, we've already seen that this agreement was signed when the internet was just starting way back in 1990s. Okay, so at that particular point of time, every country, obviously they didn't know the potential of what this industry could be, at least at right now. At that particular point of time, they imposed a moratorium on custom duties imposed on e-commerce transactions. ठीक है, बट इशू क्या हुआ? वो कस्टम ड्यूटी लगी कि वो इम्पोज moratorium imposition has still remained the same even till now, and no agreement has been reached by any country with respect to removal of that, isn't it? And even in 12th Ministerial Conference this issue was being discussed, but at that particular point of time that thing was also extended कि 24 में बात करेंगे. तो आपको क्या लगता है 24 में बात करके क्या डिसाइड हुआ? What do you think? सामने लिखा हुआ है, बट जिस हिसाब से बातें चल रही हैं, the moratorium imposition will still continue for 2 more years. And why 2 more years? Because after 2 years there will be 14th Ministerial Conference. फिर तब की तब देखें. एटलीस्ट हम लोगों ने तो 2 साल तक कर दिया एक्सटेंड. अब हमसे कुछ मत पूछो. Okay, so that imposition of moratorium on custom duties on e-commerce transactions still will continue up till 2026. So that has been reached in the 13th Ministerial Conference. That's why it is being said कि ऐसा ही कॉन्फ्रेंस रहा है, उसमें कुछ agreement हो नहीं पाया. Is this clear? Any confusion with respect to this news? But even the government is also not naive. Okay, the government has also found various ways to, put or levy taxation on e-commerce transactions. So what type of tax has been applied on e-commerce transactions, especially if this is being done from outside country to India? Anyone? When is this moratorium का मतलब क्या होता है? This is, let's say, US, India, ठीक है? This is Amazon. On Amazon, an Indian customer has bought iPhone from US via e-commerce. ठीक है? जब भी आप कोई प्रोडक्ट खरीदते हो, टैक्स लगता है कि नहीं लगता? और ये प्रोडक्ट जब इंडिया में एंटर करेगा तो आप सबको पता है कि कस्टम ड्यूटी लगती है, तभी फिर कोई प्रोडक्ट अंदर एंटर कर सकता है. ठीक है? सो दीज थिंग्स, कस्टम ड्यूटीज, यूजुअली एवरी कंट्री अप्लाई इट ऑन whatever products that are coming from outside. तो नॉर्मल केस सिनेरियो में जैसे मान लीजिए शिपमेंट करवाइए तो दैट्स अ डिफरेंट थिंग, बट इफ वाया ई कॉमर्स इफ यू आर बाइंग एनीथिंग तो ये कस्टम ड्यूटी अप्लाई नहीं होगी. दैट्स व्हाट वाज डिसाइडेड वाया WTO agreement on e-commerce. What did they decide? कि we will put moratorium मतलब stay on imposition of custom duties on e-commerce transaction. तो बस वही चला आ रहा है, मॉरिटोरियम चल ही रहा है, कोई बात ही नहीं कर रहा है कि मॉरिटोरियम खत्म करो, अब कस्टम ड्यूटी लगाना स्टार्ट करते हैं. सो दैट इज व्हाट द मॉरिटोरियम इज. इज दिस क्लियर? And yes, all of you are correct. This is equalization levy with respect to e-commerce transactions, and how much percentage government levy on that? Anyone? नहीं, बट गवर्नमेंट को रेवेन्यू का भी तो लॉस हो रहा है. करेक्ट, 2%. चलो. What about equalization levy on advertisement services? How much percentage is there? बहुत बढ़िया, 6%. ठीक है, ये सब चीजें याद करके रखिए. तो we've seen this agreement on e-commerce. Let's see another news which is related to obviously increasing of membership of WTO. So Comoros and Timor-Leste are the most recent members of WTO. अब देखो इस तरीके की न्यूज बहुत ज्यादा इंपॉर्टेंट है. दिस विल डेफिनेटली कम इन फेज 1 ऑफ एनी एग्जामिनेशन, चाहे आप कोई भी बैंकिंग एग्जामिनेशन दे लो, या RBI का, या फिर NABARD का, या फिर SEBI का. GA में ऐसी ही न्यूज आएंगी और पक्का लिख के ले लो, आ जाएगी. अब ये सब नहीं पूछेंगे तो क्या पूछेंगे? द मोस्ट प्रोमिनेंट इंटरनेशनल इकोनॉमिक इंस्टीट्यूशंस, द मेंबरशिप ऑफ विच हैज बीन इंक्रीज्ड टू 166 नाउ. ठीक है, पहले 164 थी, 2 मेंबर और ऐड हो गए, 166. आइलैंड नेशंस है ना, इसलिए नाम नहीं सुना, बट मेक श्योर अभी सुन के और याद भी कर लेना. ठीक है. Next is India proposes 3-point action plan to revive WTO dispute settlement body. So we have discussed this in numerous times, that what's dispute settlement body and why is it right now defunct. So what's the main issue, everyone? What's the main issue? Why this body is right now not able to function? कोई भी dispute हम इस dispute settlement body में ले जा ही नहीं पा रहे हैं, और ले जा पा रहे हैं तो उस पर कोई action नहीं हो रहा. Why is it so? Yes, correct. Lacking quorum. What is quorum? Minimum members to be present so as to start operation of any body. So if I ask you what's the quorum of RBI's monetary policy committee, so what is that answer, everyone? How many of you know what's the quorum of RBI's monetary policy committee? RBI monetary policy committee में कितने मेंबर होने चाहिए कम से कम, जिससे एटलीस्ट वो मीटिंग हो सके? Yes, correct. 4 is the correct answer, है ना? अगर 4 से कम हुए तो फिर वो मीटिंग कंडक्ट नहीं करी जाएगी. So that's what the situation with DSB has been. Okay, उसमें अपॉइंटमेंट करने नहीं दे रहे हैं because appointment is also done via consensus and that is being held by countries like USA and all those things, because USA thinks कि ये dispute settlement body हमारे खिलाफ है, जितने भी केस लेके जाओ हम हार जाते हैं उसमें, इंडिया जीत जाती है. So that's the main issue. ठीक है. So in that context, what did India say? India says transition the discussions on dispute settlement reforms to formal WTO bodies. उन्होंने कहा एक सिंगल एपेक्स बॉडी के पास जाने से बेटर है आप डिस्कशंस को हर एक जो इंडिविजुअल बॉडी बनी है हर एक अग्रीमेंट की वहां पर चले जाओ. जस्ट गो टू द इंडिविजुअल organization that have been established on account of these different agreements that have been agreed on WTO. For example, we have this agreement on agriculture, have a different space over there. Then we have TRIPS, have a different space over there. TRIMS have a different space over there. Different committees and different organizations have been demarcated within the WTO. India is saying instead of on a single dispute settlement body, whatever type of issue that you have been incurring, just go to that particular department and resolve it over there only. So that's the one suggestion that India has provided. Okay? Because India thinks that this is not just a formality, this will ensure multilateralization of the process. Okay? It will empower all the countries to specifically address their issues within the specific domain that they are having problem with. And lastly, formality में बोल ही दिया है कि the WTO must prioritize the restoration of the appellate body. ठीक है, appellate body को restore करिए so that this dispute settlement thing can continue. Okay. Next thing is non-inclusion of non-trade topics at WTO Ministerial Conference 13th. So even if I don't fully explain it to you, you guys are already aware of this issue. Does India have any problem with respect to any country's policies which are not economically related but they are impacting economically? Anyone? अभी बहुत न्यूज़ में चल रहा था ना, इंडिया कह रही है कि आप दूसरे डोमेन की चीज़ इकोनॉमी में मत डालिए, है ना? यस, बहुत बढ़िया, करेक्ट. CBAM, which is Carbon Border Adjustment Mechanism, originated by a European Union, ठीक है? Which is like a taxation on imports from 7 carbon intensive industries. Okay, and which India is saying that you are trying to combine two different things, which is not very much, in the spirit of WTO. India is saying in the garb or in the guise of environmental issues, you are actually prohibiting trade from developing countries or exports from developing countries. So that's what the India proposed at this ministerial conference. It says that we should not include any non-trade topics to enter into trade related agreements on WTO. Okay? It's not fair. Okay? Mention this thing in your descriptive answer or do give an example of CBA. Next is India's proposal on remittances. ठीक है, अब ये remittances वाला भी हम लोगों ने खूब डिस्कस कर रखा है. Even today also in circular session we've discussed one proposal with respect to remittances. Which country did we discuss today? Anyone? Where India signed an agreement to further cross-border remittances. सिंगापुर तो पुरानी है, आज क्या डिस्कस किया था? And for those of you who were not there in the class, yes, Nepal is the correct answer. ठीक है? But let's see what's the proposal of India is. So India is proposing कि we should reduce the cost of transferring cross-border remittances. Usually अगर आप normal methodology के through जाओगे without UPI, think about it. So naturally you will go to some exchange, you will transfer money by converting from that exchange and then it will come to India. Then there are some rules and regulations, and that cost of transferring this amount after deducting all commissions and all fees, it turns out to be on an average 6% of the amount of the transaction that you're doing. But if you utilize technologies like UPI and even the SDG goal of regarding cross-border remittances, transaction cost is 3% only. That we need to reduce that transaction cost up to 3%. And this proposal has been receiving huge support by various countries. And mark my words, the support is for reducing transaction cost only. ठीक है, इसको support मिला है. But कोई चीज materialize इसलिए नहीं हुई because another thing that India was proposing, India was saying कि देखो आपको रिड्यूस करना है, हमारे पास टेक्नोलॉजी है, टेक्नोलॉजी को WTO के अंदर आप फॉर्मली अग्री करवा दो, सारे कंट्रीज को करवा दो UPI और रिड्यूस हो जाएगी. So you can see this reduction was the first proposal. Then another thing was that this was done by India to internationalize UPI interface for global penetration. But nothing was materialized because developed countries did not agreed upon it and they even resisted this UPI promotion plan. ठीक है? But India भी like कब तक जाओगे? आसपास के हम लोग नेटवर्क बना लेते हैं. Think about it. If we connect UPI if we connect South Asia via UPI, then our extended neighborhood, ठीक है? फिर Asian region अगर हम लोग connect कर पाए, so that is the most important feat we can achieve. But at least I hope you understand in what direction the Indian government is wanting to go. ठीक है? We want to internationalize UPI, and one of the method is not only the agreements with other countries, G2G, केवल उतना नहीं, but we also are trying to utilize platforms like WTO in order to expand it on multilateral scale. Is this clear, everyone? I hope you can write these two things within this one specific point. Chalo. So this was India's proposal on remittances. So these were all multilateral discussions that were going on. Now we will come to plurilateral discussions. So we discussed plurilateral versus multilateral in the way back in current affairs sessions also. So what do you mean by plurilateral agreements and how are they different from multilateral agreements? Anyone? What's the difference between these two? Especially if we're talking in context on WTO domain only. So think about that multilateral, assume it in WTO's style. WTO में सारे agreements आपको पता है consensus से होने हैं, ठीक है? If all agreements are agreed upon by consensus of all the members, 166 right now, these are multilateral agreements. But WTO also provides a special provision कि देखो हमको पता है कि सारे लोगों को कंसेंसस में लाना इट्स नॉट वेरी इजी, ठीक है, तो बहुत कॉमन और वाइड टॉपिक चाहिए. बट इफ सम कंट्रीज वांट और सम ग्रुप ऑफ कंट्रीज वांट टू हैव ट्रेड रिलेटेड सेटिंग विद इन देयर ओन रीजन और अमंग्स देमसेल्फ, सो दैट इज ऑल्सो अलाउड. सो दैट इज व्हाट यू कॉल प्लूरिलेटरल, वेयर सम ग्रुप ऑफ कंट्रीज, चाहे वो 30 हो, 70 हो, 140 हो, 120 हो, ठीक है, but obviously not the whole, but some amount of group of countries individually they can also do some agreements. ठीक है, so this is what the plurilateral agreements are and this is what is different from multilateral agreements. Is this clear to everyone? So here we will be discussing two plurilateral agreements that have been discussed in the 13th Ministerial Conference. The one ministerial and one plurilateral agreement we discussed in an ample amount of times in current affairs session only. That is related to China only. And what was the name of that plurilateral agreement? Can anybody tell? Yes, correct. Investment Facilitation for Development Agreement. This agreement we've discussed ample amount of times in the current affairs, which is led by China. And what does this agreement enables China to do so? So whatever countries that will be agreeing upon this agreement, it will become easier for China to invest in all these countries because the investment rules from one country to another, all these things will be standardized on the basis of this agreement. अब होता है ना कि आप किसी दूसरी कंट्री में इन्वेस्ट करने जाओ, अब इवन अगर आप कोई बाहर की कंट्री इंडिया में भी इन्वेस्ट करना चाहती है, you have rules and regulations with respect to FII, with respect to FDI, ठीक है, FDI भी कितने सेक्टर में कितना कर सकते हो वो आपको पता है. There are various rules and regulations with respect to that. FIIs भी कुछ परसेंटेज तक इन्वेस्टमेंट कर सकते हैं, है ना, तो ये रूल्स एंड रेगुलेशंस हर कंट्री में रहते हैं. बट इफ all those countries that are member of this investment facilitation for development agreement, if they agree upon it, so all those countries will be having similar set of standards with respect to investments. तो फिर वो standardization हो जाएगा and it helps in optimization of investments flow from one country to another. And China is hoping कि इसके through I will put out huge amount of money with respect to all those countries that are here in one belt and one road initiative वाले countries इसमें ज़्यादा है, so that it can further China's geopolitical and other interests also. ठीक है, and obviously this was opposed by India India was saying that it does not fulfill the criteria of consensus of a formal agreement. Okay, it goes against the multilateral spirit of WTO and all those things. Okay, and what happened in 13th Ministerial Conference? Obviously, when it was opposed by various countries, nothing materialized in context of this agreement. So this is the first thing. I hope everybody understands. और इसमें 120 countries से भी ज़्यादा they were discussing about it. Any confusion in this? Chalo, let's move on to next, which is domestic regulation of services. And this was also discussed by us in the current affairs session, where we discussed that some countries have actually signed a service agreement amongst themselves, okay, where they will further lower the trade and tariffs and will further provide other obligations so that the services trade amongst them increases. Okay. So this is what new discipline has been agreed on, a domestic regulation of services. Okay, and this has been supported by 72 WTO members. Please make sure you remember this much number. Okay, and what will happen in this? They will simplify and streamline regulatory procedures so that more services cross-border trade happens amongst these 72 member countries. Okay, and India is definitely not a party to this plurilateral initiative, because most of the ideas behind India's engagement into various agreements within WTO is that we want to include into consensual agreements only, multilateral, fully consensus agreements. Okay. So this was all that was there in WTO. Major happenings under 13th Ministerial Conference. Not a lot of things happened in that case, but mostly if you see the India's statement, our Minister of Commerce, statement in WTO, all these things include India's position on various issues if you look at it. Okay, so let's see what are the various positions. India still is committed to developing, focusing on combating hunger and supporting low-income farmers and fishermen. Highlighting importance of permanent solution on public stock holding. This is in context of farm subsidies, because we want to achieve the goal of zero hunger by 2030. Urging for global consensus on sustainable fishing practices. Stressing the need for development-focused reform in WTO. Reaffirming India's commitment to sustainable living via Mission Life also. Asserting that measures to combat climate change should not be unjustly restrict international trade. So basically just giving a reference to carbon border adjustment mechanism only. Okay, and the last thing, expressing confidence in constructive engagement at Ministerial Conference to address long pending issue of permanent solution on food security. Okay, so this is all with respect to 13th Ministerial Conference has been. आपको पता ही है, मैंने इसमें बता ही दिया कि what are the things that you can learn in context for objective, and what are the various points and what are the various perspectives that you can write in context of descriptive. ठीक है, तो any confusion to anyone? Feel free to ask, otherwise we'll wind up the session. CBAM bin brief. So carbon border adjustment mechanism is a mechanism established by European Union, which will put custom duty or import duty of up to, let's say, 30% on various imports for, that are coming from 7 carbon intensive sectors. For example, steel, cement, and all those industries. है ना? So this is what the mechanism is all about, and this will be applicable from 2026. कोई ज़्यादा दिन नहीं है. So what India is saying कि usually India is the country that do most of the exports from these industries, intensive industries. Okay, and when you put this much amount of taxation in custom duty or in import duty, तो our exports will become non-competitive. ठीक है, तो हमारे exports तो फिर जाएंगे ही नहीं, हमारे exports खत्म हो जाएगा. And India is saying कि in the guise of climate change or in the guise of non-economic factors, do not mix non-economic with economic factors. That's why WTO maybe this has been opposed by India. Is this clear? Any other doubt? Anyone? So NABARD officer is asking when NABARD 24 live class and mentorship will be available. So this will be available recently. Any further information if you're seeking, you can just contact the contact number available over there, है ना? But recent जल्दी ही लेके आएंगे हम लोग इस चीज़ को. Anything else, anyone? How to use SDG in descriptive answers. Yes, just first of all do one thing, make sure you remember every SDG. ठीक है, रट लो इसको अच्छे से. पहला काम तो ये कर लो, इसको अच्छे से रट लोगे तो you will anyways be remembering what number SDG is for what purposes. So if I ask you पहला नंबर SDG किसका है, everybody knows, 0, poverty. है ना? And if I ask you what about 5th number SDG, सबको नहीं पता होगा, but anyone? Yes, correct. Gender equality. So Yash was asking this question. Huh? So Yash, are you trying to aim for Reserve Bank of India's exam? No? So if you're aiming for that, I hope you remember the syllabus also. Now, can you relate anything in your ESI syllabus that relates to these two topics? And this question is for everyone else also. Social empowerment, social justice. ठीक है? So any question that comes about women or women empowerment or even social justice, do mention about this either in introduction and most suitably in conclusion. That India needs to do these things to empower women so as to achieve even sustainable development goal of gender equality also. Same is the case with poverty and unemployment also. ठीक है, कोई भी poverty से related question आ ही जाता है. And SDGs are the most suitable thing to write in conclusion. वो एक होता ना mic drop moment that is being achieved via SDGs. तो सबसे पहला काम आप लोग ये करिए, SDG को रट लो 1 से 17. और फिर वो ऑब्जेक्टिव में भी काम करेगा एंड दिस विल इनएविटेबली हेल्प यू इन डिस्क्रिप्टिव्स आल्सो. आई होप दिस हेल्प्स. Anything else, everyone? Yes, बिल्कुल. कल ही तो पढ़ा था आप लोगों ने. Do mention about women over there. चलो, thank you guys for joining. We'll meet in the next session. Till then, keep revising these important topics. ठीक है, सर्कुलर्स को अच्छे से करते चलो. WTO जो आपके सिलेबस में एक्सप्लिसिटली मेंशन्ड है ना, उन टॉपिक्स को तो बड़े अच्छे से करते चलो. ठीक है, अब बड़े अच्छे से मैं जब बोल रहा हूँ तो आप उसको कम से कम 3-4 बार रिवाइज करके चलना मिनिमम, so that you do not do mistakes, especially on the topic that you already read. हाँ, रिपोर्ट्स तो एनीवेज करनी है ना, इन केस फॉर ESI phase 2. रिपोर्ट्स की क्लासेस भी होंगी, डोंट वरी. ओके, सो वी विल डू रिपोर्ट्स क्लासेस आल्सो. चलो, थैंक यू एवरीवन. वी विल मीट इन द नेक्स्ट सेशन. थैंक यू.